What's up YouTube, I'm Mike, and today, oh my God guys, I have a banger video for you. You're not gonna believe this. I am going to try desperately to control my mouth because I am pissed off right now about what has been happening to me for at least the last 6 months. If you've been following my channel, you know that I have been running all kinds of experiments on my body. I've been using Deca, mint, all kinds of aromatizable compounds, and I have been going through total hell trying to manage my estrogen on these various compounds. Before I started running these experiments, I had made countless videos talking about how accurately I have been able to dial in various compounds, various estrogen levels using Arimidex, cabergoline, all of these things to try to manage my bodybuilding cycles and keep my female hormones in line. And you'll know that since over the course of the last 6 months to a year, I have been having nothing but one problem after another, specifically managing my estrogen levels. So all of these problems that I've been having led me to eventually deciding to take testosterone completely out of my cycle and do a no testosterone cycle where I would inject estradiol valerate to replace the estrogen that my body was no longer aromatizing via the aromatase pathway, right? So no testosterone, everybody knows you can't run no test cycles because, like for example, I'm running Tren and Deca. Well, both of those shut you down, and if you don't have testosterone in your cycle, then you'll have no estrogen. So, because I cannot believe what I'm about to tell you guys. Because of all the misery that I have been experiencing with my busted ass estrogen levels being all over the place, completely all over the map, I decided that I had to try to get something to where I could take control. So over a month and a half ago, I took all of the testosterone out of my cycle and I began running only Trenbolone, Masteron, and Deca with a little HCG on the side. And I tested this myself. I went to the doctor and I tested it myself, and I came back with a 12.4 picogram per milliliter estradiol level when I had been taking 0.1 milligrams of estradiol valerate. So let me back up real quickly. I took all of the testosterone out of my system until I felt like my estrogen had crashed. When I was quite certain that my estrogen had crashed because I was experiencing every single one of the symptoms, then I started reintroducing estradiol valerate at a dose of 0.1 milligrams every other day until the symptoms began to reside. So when the symptoms began to reside, I went to Quest and I pulled an E2 sensitive test to check to see where my estradiol level was. And it came back at 12.4 milligrams. So I knew that that was in the range, that's a sufficient amount of estradiol to have, but I really wanted my estradiol to be on the upper end of normal. So I began dosing 0.15 milligrams of estradiol valerate every other day. My TRT company comes along and they asked to do another piece of blood work. So if you'll remember, when I was trying to get control of my hormone profile before, when I had taken the mint out of the cycle, and I had taken everything down to what I knew I could run. I knew I could run Deca, I knew I could run Masteron, and I knew I could run test at certain amounts and I could have controllable estrogen. So I brought all my levels back down to what I knew was safe, and I was using 3 milligrams of Arimidex, and I went and got my own blood work checked. I think I was using more than that. I think I was at 5 milligrams of Arimidex. I went and got my own blood work checked, and my E2 was right in the sweet spot at 22 picograms. But I was like, okay, you know, I really shouldn't need 5 milligrams. So I lowered the dose to 3.5 milligrams of 8X, and I was feeling great. I was feeling phenomenal. Then here comes along my TRT company, and they want me to go get my blood work because 6 weeks earlier, when I had been doing the mint and all those other crazy cycles, my E2 had been through the roof, and they had found it, that it was like 90, 90 and range up to 42. So I run off to get this free blood work from Royal Men's Medical Center. That's my TRT company. If you are currently using Royal Men's Medical Center, you should fire their stupid asses right now, which is what I intend to do after this doctor calls me and I tell him what a complete and total idiot he is. So, my blood work showed that my E2 is perfectly in line, and I lowered my Arimidex dose so that I could keep it at the high end of normal. A couple weeks later, Royal Men's Medical Center sends me to get an estradiol check, and it comes back at 77. And I'm like, what is going on? I had just fixed everything. I had my E2 sky high on mint. I got off the mint. I started dosing a whole bunch of Arimidex to get my levels back down to normal. I was taking a known amount of Arimidex for a known amount of androgens, and when I got my blood work checked, everything was normal. So how is it possible that when Royal Men's got it checked, it was 77? But they're the doctors, right? So I trusted them. So I said, okay, I guess I lowered my Arimidex too much. So then it's like, okay, well, wait a minute. Something's wrong. Why is my body behaving in a way that it's never behaved? Why is it that in order to be able to, I gotta check my camera, but my battery on this microphone's almost gone. Why is it that suddenly my body is requiring way more Arimidex to control my estrogen, and the Arimidex seems to be causing problems? I had broke D game, I had all this crap going on. My wife kept telling me, dude, your estrogen is low, you're not connected to me, something's wrong. But I'm trusting the numbers on the paper. So I take all the testosterone out of my cycle and I go get my blood work checked. And on 0.1 milligrams of estradiol valerate, my E2 level was at 12.4 picograms in a range of up to 35, which means I was just below the midway point. And so since I didn't want to be just below the midway point, I raised my estrogen to 0.15 milligrams every other day, and I feel phenomenal. I feel great. Admittedly, my D game is not working the way I want it to, which has been a concern. I have a lot of ideas as to why that might be going on. And then Royal Men's comes along today, or the other day, and they send me this blood work panel. So I'm like, great, I'm gonna get some free blood work. This is gonna be crazy. I talked about it in my last video. I said, this is gonna be crazy. Because my TRT clinic is sending me to get blood work, and obviously the blood work is gonna come back, and it's gonna show that I have no testosterone, and my estrogen is gonna be right in the middle of the sweet spot. They're gonna lose their minds. Until this morning, when my blood work came back. Yeah, I got my blood work back. And you know what's weird? I had noticed something else weird. Every time Royal Men's pulls my estrogen level, the test comes back in one day. I donated blood at 4 o'clock yesterday on a Friday, and first thing in like 1 o'clock this afternoon, I had my estradiol level back. I'm like, how does that happen? Because every time I pull my estradiol level, it takes 4 or 5 days for it to come back. So I'm all excited this morning, right? So I'm like, ooh, here we go, this is gonna be exciting. So I pull up my results, and I almost fell out of bed. I am on 0 testosterone, 0. And my testosterone level came back greater than 1500. I look at my estradiol level, and my estradiol level is right where it was before the last time they checked it, at 77. My test looks almost identical to the last time they pulled it. The last time they pulled it, I had 500 milligrams of testosterone in my system, and I was taking a bunch of Arimidex, and somehow I had greater than 1500 testosterone, and my E2 was out of range at 77, despite being on a metric ton of Arimidex. So now I'm looking at these results, and the first thing that I think to myself is, this is not my blood work. It can't be. There's no way this can be my blood work. I go and I double check all my bottles. I'm panicking, like I'm having a literal panic attack. I'm like, oh my God, I fucked this up. Maybe I crossed the bottles up. Maybe the reason I'm having all these problems is because I confused my Deca and my test bottle. You know, maybe I've been pinning test when I thought it was Deca, and that's what's causing everything to be wrong. The good news is that my bottles are scored differently. You can tell on the cap that goes onto the metal crimp top on the Deca bottle is different than the metal crimp top on the testosterone bottle. So I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, I'm not been fucking this up. This is right. So then I'm like, okay, well, oh shit. They don't pull a sensitive testosterone check. They always pull a non-sensitive testosterone check because they don't really want to know how high your level is, because they're not really trying to get you in a normal level. Greater than 1500 is okay for the testosterone clinic as long as you're not having symptoms, which is why they can give you 200 milligrams of test per week, even though it's really more than you really need. 200 milligrams of test is not a replacement dose. We've all been talking about that forever. It's kind of like get out of, it's kind of like get away with a free one. You can legally get like a small cycle prescribed to you by a TRT clinic. You don't really need 200 milligrams per week of testosterone to maintain normal, healthy amounts of testosterone in your system. So they don't pull a sensitive test. So I type in, will nandrolone come back positive on a testosterone, on a non-sensitive testosterone test? And the answer is yes, it does. Trenbolone probably does too. More Plates, More Dates made a video. He's got a couple articles about saying that if you want to tell if your DECA is real, if you're not taking any testosterone, or you have a normal physiological amount of testosterone, right? Like you're not on TRT, and you add DECA to your cycle, your testosterone level will go up because DECA comes back as testosterone on a non-sensitive panel. So it's like, okay, cool. Okay, we're good now. So I haven't fucked anything up. The only thing that's happening is they pulled a non-sensitive test, and that's why it's still showing that my testosterone level is greater than 1500, when in fact I have 0 testosterone in my bloodstream. Wait a minute. They couldn't have done it, right? No way they did it. Could they have done it? I touched the button to zoom in to the details on my E2 test, and guess what it says? ECLIA. Royal Men's Medical Center has been pulling non-sensitive estradiol tests this entire time. The reason that my estradiol levels have been all over the fucking map, the reason that I have been going through hell and high water when I think I have something dialed in, and I've checked it with my own blood work, and I've got all of my known doses, and this is what I'm taking, and I've checked this a million times. See, the thing is, Royal Men's Medical Center, they don't really care about your health. They only do the minimum amount of blood tests necessary. So 90% of the time that they've checked my blood work, they only got involved with my blood work in the last year. Like most of the times that they've checked it in the past, I've had a couple of high results come back, but I was always doing all my own blood work so regularly that I guess it just didn't, I was either off cycle when it happened, or I don't know what the variable is. But when I looked back through all of my previous blood work, like the most recent time when I decided to quit testosterone completely, the reason that I decided to quit testosterone completely is because I had been taking 500 milligrams of test. I'd been taking my normal cycle amounts, and I was taking 3.5 milligrams of Arimidex, and my E2 is dialed in perfectly, like I just mentioned earlier. And then they sent me to get a test, and it said 77. And so it had convinced me that I didn't know how to control my body, because my numbers just kept going up and down and left and right and all over the place. And when I looked back, every one of these tests they've been pulling over and over, trying to get this number into the right spot for the past 9 months now, they've all been non-sensitive E2 tests. Every one of those tests was fucked out the gate. They were never going to be accurate. So I've basically been running around like a chicken with my head cut off, chasing a ghost. This whole time that I have been thinking that my estradiol levels are all over the map is because these idiots were not pulling sensitive tests. So I would go get blood work done, and everything would be perfectly dialed in, and I would start feeling sane and secure. It's like, okay, cool, everything is exactly the way it's supposed to be. 2-3 weeks later, they send me to get a test, and it's all jacked up again. And I could not figure out what was going on. And now we know. What we know is that Royal Men's Medical Center is an absolute bunch of clowns. I told these idiots every time they send me to take a test and they ask me like, what's going on, dude? Why are your levels like this? I told them I'm on a lot of steroids. I have told Royal Men's Medical Center, yeah, you fucking assholes, I'm coming after you. I'm currently one of their sponsored athletes. Not anymore. I will not recommend these people to absolutely anybody. I'm gonna put their asses out of business. What they are doing is criminal. The fact that they are prescribing drugs to people who are telling them, who are admittedly telling them, hey, look, I'm taking giant amounts of testosterone, I'm taking giant amounts of other Deca, Tren, Masteron, Primo, and I have told these people multiple times over the past 5 years that I take a lot of different compounds, and they don't really care. That's the cool part, they don't care. But the problem is that if you keep running tests and you don't run the proper tests, then you're not helping your client. When you keep telling your client that his estrogen level is through the roof, when in fact it's not, you're picking up all kinds of different crap that he may be putting into his body. That's what's causing all of these levels to be fucked up. So doctors have to pull the right kinds of tests in the right situation. Why they would not pull an E2 sensitive test is absolutely beyond me. Every bodybuilder on the planet knows that a non-sensitive E2 test is not worth the fucking paper it's written on. So all of this time that I've been going through all of this misery, it's because these morons have been pulling the wrong test. And so I've been chasing this estrogen up and down, thinking I had no idea what was going on. And lo and behold, the only people who didn't know what was going on was the doctors. So I cannot recommend to you highly enough. If you are currently a Royal Men's Medical client, I highly recommend that you contact them immediately and fire their asses. And when you do, tell them that Mike Fit sent you to fire them because they are absolute idiot assholes who probably deserve to get sued. So thank you to all of you who signed up using my code, but these people are absolutely good for nothing. So if you actually decide to use them, you need to understand one thing at a minimum. They are only a drug dealer. That is all they are. Royal Men's Medical Center is nothing more than a drug dealer. They are gonna give you more testosterone than you really need. They're gonna give you enclomiphene because they can't get HCG anymore. They're gonna give you a whole bunch of crap and they're gonna charge you a gigantic price, all of which you can get on your own very easily for pennies on the dollar. Now, of course, it's not legal. And that's what keeps these people in business, is the fear of repercussions from sourcing your own gear. And this right here is a shining example of what is wrong with the medical community at large. When I go and do the quote unquote wrong thing, I'm not gonna use the I word. When I go and do the quote unquote wrong thing, and I take my health into my own hands, and I source my own products, and I order my own lab work, then I have the best possible result for me because I know exactly what I'm putting into my body and I know exactly what the results of those doses and chemicals are. When you trust a doctor who has nothing but a cookie cutter approach, all you get is complete mis and disinformation. They absolutely mishandle your health from day one when you take that questionnaire and they try to strong arm you into getting into the program. All they care about is getting your $200 or $150 a month so that they can put you onto a program, and then they don't actually monitor your health. They don't actually listen to you. They don't care about you. They're just trying to get your money. They are absolutely no better than any other underground lab. Anywhere you could possibly go to get this, you can get it so much cheaper than these TRT clinics, and they are proving, they're gonna end up putting themselves out of business because they're gonna prove to the American government that they're not safer. They're not safer alternatives to what you can do on your own if you just have the tiniest bit of education. So there you have it. Rest assured, once I get my breath back from walking up and down this hill and ranting, I will almost certainly have more detailed videos coming up, maybe even with the test results comparing the labs that I pulled where everything was normal to the labs they pulled a couple weeks later that were abnormal, and the hell that they have put me through. What I really can't wait for is on Monday, I'm gonna get a call from their doctor. and he's gonna say, hi, I'm the medical assistant at Royal Medical Centers, and I'd like to go over your test results with you. I think I'm gonna record that phone call, and I might just put it on my YouTube channel of me ripping this guy a new asshole, because that's exactly what he deserves to get. So there you have it. As always, thank you for watching, and definitely stay tuned. I have a feeling there's gonna be a lot more content to come. See you on the next one.